All right, let's take a look at the chart dashboard that we built here at OpenFieldbook. This is live right now at portfoliogoat.com. And the inspiration behind building this application was to provide financial advisors with a way to analyze and view their portfolio models, investment strategies, in a visually appealing way that also provides a deep analysis in clear format. Here's the main page when you log into the application. You're presented with two heat maps. In this case, I'm running the S&P 500 index, which is 503 securities at this moment. And one of the reasons I'm running the S&P 500 rather than a smaller, more practical portfolio is to demonstrate how this application smoothly handles a large data set of financial calculations. Over the course of the demo, you'll see about 10 different chart dashboards along with additional features specifically for the financial advisor subset of clients. And as I was building this out for advisors, as a former portfolio manager, this is like my ideal application of how I would want to view portfolios in Excel, for example. And that's my interpretation of building out. If financial advisors had the opportunity to build out their own Excel dashboard with real-time data, this is how they might do it. So I did my best to speak to those users on a business-to-business level. And as I continued to build this out, I realized that not only do financial advisors want to understand their portfolio analytics at a deep level, but individual investors could and should be able to do that as well. So as we go along the 10 different chart dashboards, the goal that I had was to present the information in a way that's visually appealing and simple enough for the individual investor to understand. Here we're on the second dashboard, so to speak, that is displaying 503 different performance bars for the one-day time frame of the S&P 500. And we can drill down into this information in multiple ways, like scaling in on the axis, but also filtering out by specific sectors. And each one of these bars is clickable, and it brings you to the company's portfolio page within our application. So there's really no performance delay on 503 securities, building these portfolios and these dashboards. And you can also filter quickly by watch lists that can be user generated. Here I generated our watch list of the Magnificent Seven. We can also filter out by sector ETFs, and I have a global ETF index in there as well. So the interactive chart on the left, the metrics on the right, and those metrics are often take the user to a deeper level within the application, whether it's filtering out, highlighting, interacting, and so on. Here on our third chart, performance range, and it's very similar to the performance bars displaying each security's performance over the selected time frame. But here it also gives you the range for that security over that time frame. So one of the ways I like to use this tool is to filter in, zoom in on any of these outliers where performance just doesn't match, today's performance just doesn't match the range of the securities surrounding it. One of the things I'd like to recognize is that not every chart is going to be the primary chart that users use. Some are going to choose within the snapshot time frame, others are going to choose within the historical time frame. And there's just going to be different ways to review and go through this information. the overall theme that I was thinking about as building this application out was how do we not just zoom in on individual companies, but how do we gain a perspective uh, on the overall portfolio? So here we come across our first interaction with the LLM, the AI interface of OpenFieldbook. On the right-hand side, we're generating on-the-fly SWOT analysis using our back-end chain of LLM providers to source and produce accurate and up-to-date information. That was one of the difficulties with creating an AI native application. It's not about integrating the data into the AI, although that can be challenging on its own. It's really about getting the AI to produce the output that you need and that you're looking for. So you're looking for high quality information that's also accurate. And sometimes you need that in certain forms like HTML format or Markdown format. And our application was built for with the understanding that both the end user and we need to be able to interpret data in different forms and engage with the AI in a way that allows the AI to output per your request. Moving on to the historical chart dashboard here. This is a typical time series of the portfolio. This portfolio can be created. I'm not sure if I'll go through it later, but that portfolio history, if you give us, when you input your own watch list or whether you're inputting your own stock holding portfolio, we are reverse engineering the history of today's portfolio. And we've done a fantastic job at reverse engineering it very well, including handling for the survivorship bias or new entrants. But what you can also do for this history is to import your own based on whatever data provider you might have your portfolio at currently. So, for example, just output a CSV sheet and then upload it into a section over in the setup tab. And that history becomes attached to this chart and this historical time series. So again, on the right, we can play around with different metrics. What we're looking at in a couple different forms here is comparing different portfolios. And we can do that rather easily. Just type in one ticker if you want to just compare one security. Or you can create a composite portfolio, for example, if you type in two tickers, which were separated by a comma. You can also change the weights on those comparison portfolios. If you want to put in enter two tickers, for example, and not have them equal weighted, you can make it a 75-25 portfolio or any number of combinations. Here we're looking at our drawdown chart, typical chart, standard in most charting packages. We'd like to do our own thing and make it interactive and easy to engage with and understand. And so you can compare, again, you can compare like Tesla, for example, but then you can also separate out like different historical periods of drawdowns for this portfolio right here. Line at peak, align at peak. And you can, again, we got our own time frame selectors at the bottom, very convenient time frames, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year. One of the things you can do as you upgrade as a subscriber is to extend those time frames out, 10 years, 20 years. A lot of data isn't available for 20 years. There are a lot of new securities that, particularly that are quote unquote hot in today's market, that weren't around for 20 years. So that may or may not be entirely applicable to, but one of the things we've done is to ensure that our handling of those portfolios, the retroactive composite, handles the absence and drop-offs and survivorship bias well. So here we're getting in the weeds a little bit with this historical chart called rolling sensitivity. Again, I like to make it interactive and engaging and useful if it's applicable to your analysis. This might be one of those charts where the retail investor is not so focused. This might be more for a portfolio manager or an investment analyst who really wants to dig down into the specific time frames of when the portfolio deviated from its benchmark or became more or less aligned with its benchmark. Here's the fourth chart of the historical tab, and we're looking at rolling returns. We can do this on a 1 week, a 1 day, 1 month basis. So here's the returns over the last 2 years on an everyday basis. I switched back to 1 week, and right now we got about 8 weeks of positive gains on the S&P 500, which is I think about a 2 or 3 year record ongoing now. But that's one of the analysis that you can do simply by clicking on a couple of buttons and changing a couple of select boxes around. You can look at some of the erratic moves of your portfolio or the larger moves within your portfolio and then trace back to those dates. What happened on those dates? So let's move on to risk analysis, the final tab of our chart dashboard, and then we got some other features in the next few tabs along with the setup of the overall application. So here I clicked on the correlation analysis, and this is really the heaviest calculation in our portfolio, in our application. And because we have such a large portfolio of the S&P 500, 503 securities, it took a second, but it only glitched for like it didn't glitch, but it only hit for like a second. And if we that kind of 500 securities on one chart might not be so useful. So what we have over here on the right is the ability to drill down into the individual security and then compare that security to some of your own customized benchmarks, as well as filter out by sector. In our case, it's relevant when you're looking at the S&P 500 to drill down by sector. So it's running through the calculation and then filtering it out by the sector. So right there, again, you saw this 503 matrix, size matrix, ran pretty smoothly. Here's a risk return scatter plot, kind of typical that you might expect to see in a portfolio analytics application focused on the financial advisor or professional investor spectrum of clients. And again, you can filter out by sector or individual security. So this can get to be the in the weeds stuff that professionals like to analyze, like to spend their time engaging with. And I think if individuals on the consumer side wanted to spend additional time, you know, like I said, the vision for building out this application was like, how do you make this enjoyable and ideal and easy to understand? So not every chart dashboard is going to be appeal to the consumer or consumers within the consumer group. But if they did want to take an extra few minutes of their week to play around in the application, whether it's on the LLM side or if it's over here on the metric side of risk optimization and chart filtering, they could absolutely do that. Here we have another view of a heat map, and we have different metrics that we're looking at. Instead of performance, which is what we kind of got on the snapshot side of it, we definitely got performance on the snapshot side of it, but we didn't get this sort of heat map. This is a little bit more broken out equally where you might be able to see the contributing securities a little bit more easily. But these are for risk metrics. So I was looking at the beta and the annualized volatility. Currently, we're on maximum drawdown, and we could filter out by sector if we wanted to drill down on those individual metrics. And all right, let's move on to the Monte Carlo projection. This is somewhat, again, typical of a financial. This is more on the financial planning side, but this is, I suppose, a common way to view portfolios and their returns, their historical returns, and what that might look like for in the future. Here, I created this spider chart, I think it's called, of portfolio health. So different sort of metrics you might want to look at your portfolio by. We can move through to portfolio review. Here's another way to look at individual performances or other metrics like RSI, SMAs, and look at where the stock price is relative to those various metrics. And if you want to share it, you can hide your portfolio value. If you want to sort by metric, descending, you could do that. Here's the portfolio securities relative to their 14-day RSI, and right here, Fortinet and CrowdStrike appear to be pushing overbought or overextended anyway. So you can go through that list. You have plus or minus the 200-day moving average, SanDisk, with a tremendous run this year to date and the 1 year time frame. It's right now 220% over its 200-day moving average. It's just moving so quickly. I don't know that I've ever seen any numbers like that. But SanDisk 2026. So we're playing around here. We got, I was just looking for, I think, what each of these values looked like on the screen. And finally, this is another way to engage with the news, or engage with your portfolios, to stay on top of news. And we're refining this news feed constantly to deliver relevant, topical content for the users in a way that is not chart heavy. So one of the strengths I see for OpenFieldbook is it's intuitive. If a financial, particularly for the financial advisor subset of clients that spends 10 or 15 minutes within the interface, they can get an idea of what they'd want to explore and what they wouldn't want to explore. Individual retail investors, they might have a little bit more difficult time, especially the younger generation, because the apps like Robinhood are really gamified and simplified in a way that I've built the application not to do, not to not be simplified, but to be able to go deep into the analysis in a way that actually pulls from the idea that Robinhood and the user's attention span needs to be kept in a way that produces clear messaging. So that about wraps it up for the majority of the chart dashboard. There's other features. It can go really deep, and I think each one of those features of where it goes deep into the analysis of the portfolio requires maybe its own video. This one's getting a little bit long. I hope you enjoyed the overview of OpenFieldbook, the portfolio dashboard hosted at portfoliogoat.com. I invite you to come check it out. Certainly subscribe, become a paying member. You get access to the LLM features. I'll have to make a follow-up video on the AI chats, because that's really where the users, the paying users, get their money's worth out of this application. I mean, the free version's great, but the AI chat features and not being free user limited in that regard is really where it gets exciting for the future. And we've done a great job by building this news parsing service and validating the facts to produce highly accurate AI output, particularly because that's kind of what's demanded from the professional investment side. All right, thanks for watching. Have a great day.